Hello everyone, welcome back to session 2. This is using multi-aught measurement to drive growth. I've already said enough up in here already, so I won't say anything else. We are going to bring our first speakers out. Please welcome to the stage John Moulding and Patrick Béhar as we talk about hybrid, enriched and fully leveraged measurement data that drives growth. Round of applause, please.
Right, hello everyone. I think that panel at the end there was a bit of a tour de force, so it kind of sets up and got us all thinking about measurement very nicely. And I'm with Patrick Behar, who is the new global CEO at Kantar Media, so very much in that measurement space. And welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, thank you. Happy to be back here in front of you.
Yeah, and the last time we spoke was on this stage, actually, and you were still Chief Business Officer at Sky for UK and Europe. So it's quite rare for someone to move across from a sort of major content group and sales house into measurement. So just tell us how that sort of happened, what led you there.
Sure, with pleasure. By the way, it was a year ago, right before France-England in the Football World Cup. So that was an interesting memory. Look, I'm delighted to be here, and in the new role, as you guys know, I've started a little bit over 2 months ago at Kantar Media. And I love that question because it enables me to be very genuine about it. And I've been fascinated. I mean, you guys know I have a huge passion for the media and entertainment ecosystem. And when Ben and Capital reached out about the role, I started looking into what Kantar Media was doing, and I was fascinated by the ability to be at the forefront of a measurement industry that is going and will continue to go through a tremendous amount of changes, right? And coming from the flip side of the mirror, I knew how important that data was, not just in terms of the data, but the insights, the foresight that it brings, and not just from an advertising standpoint. We talk a lot about advertising, but we also from a content standpoint, right? We can't forget that as content players, 60% of the cost base is content related in some shape or form, right? So that the data is critically used for content decision. And obviously that's my 5 years of experience, not just running Sky Media, but also running partnerships and distribution at Sky. So I was like, I want to be at the forefront of that. And then I open the hood and I see all the innovation, and we're going to talk about that Kantar Media is at the center of, right? Being present in 60 countries, which is obviously an interesting challenge in terms of fragmentation, but an immense source of innovation and richness, being in contact with so many players at the same time, if you play it well. So that's kind of the long story.
Okay, and lessons from the first 3 months?
Look, lots of lessons. First, incredibly impressed by the depth and the richness of the relationship. I've been traveling a lot. I've been to Brazil. Obviously, I've been all over Europe. I've been to America a few times. Impressed by the innovation in terms of product, but also impressed by the fact that, and that may be different to some other of our friends and competitors in the industry, how customized we are and how close we are to our customers in terms of the willingness to adapt to the local market specificities and needs.
Okay, I mean, you said there that insights bring foresight. But you also said, sort of soon after you were made CEO at Kantar, that you think this industry, television, massively under-leverages data. So just talk us through what we're not doing enough of, or what we're not using sufficiently.
So look, I mean, obviously I've got a huge ambition for how we can contribute to that ecosystem, again, both on the advertising and content side. But let me give you a couple examples that I've picked up. I think that we're reaching a point where we've got to always go back to what the ultimate end users want, right? And those are advertisers, agencies on the buy side, but also broadcasters and platforms on the sell side. You gotta always go back to be obsessed about this. The key thing is, increasingly, you live in a world, if I look at the advertising side of the coin, we'll talk about content in a second, where you need to be able to compare, contrast, decide, allocate money between two worlds, two ecosystems that are touching each other, but are still quite separate today in the way they operate. And being part of the force that's going to try to bring them together is incredibly exciting, right? I think that's the big holy grail for all of us. Now, you guys talk a lot about this. There's lots of questions. There's lots of technical issues. I think collectively, through partnership, we'll find a way to solve it in the next 3 to 5 years. And I think I want Kantar Media, and I want to be at the center of that.
And we'll solve what? Cross-platform measurement with deduplication, reach and frequency unified?
Absolutely.
Okay, within 3 years. Okay, great. So if we achieve that in 3 years, then what do you think the implication will be? Because that sounds quite an aggressive timescale to me.
Well, first, it's less about the destination than it is about the journey, right? I think what it does is that it gives people the tool to plan, to execute, to buy, to validate, to measure, and then to learn about this in a way that is completely different today, right? You know, if I look at the world today, if I look at being on the other side of the mirror again, from my years as a consultant or my years at Sky Media, everyone has a different tool. It does his own calculation in its corner. I think bringing more transparency to the ecosystem is going to be beneficial for everyone. I'm a bit less, I know there's a lot of worries, right? I mean, not to put a fine point on it, that people fear that suddenly on the brand advertising side of things, there's a risk for traditional players. There's a risk that on the performance side of advertising, that's going to lock the door to new entrants at the same time. I actually think that putting the tools in the hands of the people that ultimately need it is going to end up in a good place for everyone. Because at the end of the day, right, the battle we're all in that room and together is how do we grow the marketing pie? And how do we keep making the point that advertising is an incredibly powerful tool to drive product, to drive consumer engagement, to drive consumer satisfaction, right? I don't think there's an enemy in that ecosystem. I think the real challenge is making sure we remain relevant in an industry against what else is going on.
Okay, and obviously we're in this sort of hybrid environment now, and we've got Mark Frayne on in a moment from Foxtel Media. You're working with them on their set-top box return path data to sort of validate and process the data. In Canada, you're involved in what's possibly the most interesting return path data project on Earth at the moment, which is 5 operators feeding their data into Numeris to help them calibrate and enrich their existing panel. So, I mean, is return path data one of the key ingredients into us getting to this sort of holy grail?
Look, it's one of the interesting streams. I mean, obviously, as you guys know, Sky was one of the pioneers in that thing with return path data and a panel that is that's going to reach multi-million people in that process. I think it's interesting because it provides a level of granularity of the data that gives you a lot of flexibility in what you want to do, and also a lot of timeliness into what you want to do. I think there's another innovation that I want to bring up, coming from another part of the world, is the work that the Kantar Media team, Ibope Media team does in Brazil, building the first cross-media planner that's going to serve the entire industry, so really the entire spectrum, bringing together platform data and traditional broadcaster data in the process, and being able to be used as not as a tactical, but as a strategic cross-media planner and optimizer. I think all those initiatives, one by one, and I'm sure our competitors have some other ones as well, and that's wonderful. Keep moving the stones step by step, a bit like a crab, and then each country will get to a point where you're going to have more of a global innovation.
Okay, and in terms of panels, because obviously that's a key focus for Kantar, when you look globally, what do you see as the standout innovation in panels right now?
So one of the things that hit me over the last 2 months, and I may be opening an open door for many of you here, is that the role of panel is shifting from measuring to calibrating big set of data, right? And obviously big set of data, everyone thinks about Beaver data. That's the way we do it with Barb and Dovetail in the UK, but also platform data, YouTube, Meta, etc. In the process. And that means that it's not just about, all the intricacies and the complexities of panel management, but it's also about how do you build the data science to be reliable, to calibrate your big census data with your multi-thousand panel data. And I think we're opening new territories in that field.
Okay. And you,
because it's got, you know, privacy issue, differential privacy issue, which you need to be incredibly careful about. And I think it's a very interesting new area.
okay. And what are the sort of the next steps in terms of Kantar's involvement in panels? You know, in terms of your innovation roadmap yourselves, is there anything obvious on the horizon now?
Look, there's 3-4 main themes around that. We've got a number of products that we think are innovative, and we'd like to bring them all around the world and share that knowledge and drive innovation globally in that process. The second one is there's a number of markets that I think would benefit. I mean, we're in the UK, so I'm going to preach for the UK chapel in there. I think there's been a lot of massive innovation in the UK, whether it's Behar, whether it's Origin, or the work we do with individual players in the process, that I think some other markets could benefit from, i.e. the US, for instance. I think that's the second one. And then the third one is when we look at panel. I mean, you heard about our PM7, our People Meter 7, which has a lot of watermarking technology into that, which combined with a focal meter gives you a level of data and calibration of the panel, which is pretty advanced in the process. That's another one that we're also spreading across the different markets. So you put all three in the blender, you've got a pretty dense and intense product and tech roadmap over the next few years.
Okay. Now, if you've got any audience questions, I'm just going to open up in 1 second. Before I do that, I just want to ask you about the term alternative measurement, because this whole session is about alternative measurement. I mean, that came from the US, obviously, and you know, we even had phrases like measurement independence. I mean, do you find that phrase helpful, or do you think that sort of deflects us from the industry, what we should be thinking about?
So I think we'll understand why the sentence comes from the US and why, right? And why there was a need from alternative measurement to provide something else that the current incumbent was not providing. I do like the idea. There's a word I prefer to alternative measurement or alternative currency, which is open environment, which is, I love the idea of providing audience measurement tools that the whole spectrum of players in the industry can use, and giving people back the choices to do what they want with this. I think if I build on my years of consulting experience and scars, you always end up as an industry in a better place than when you try to limit choices, whether it's on the sales side or on the buy side of it. So if by alternative, back to your question, you mean diversity, plurality, and a bit of an open environment to foster innovation, I love that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we've got time for an audience question or two. Does anybody have anything to ask?
I've got a question.
Okay, can you just wait for... Oh, you're upstairs. Okay, yeah, just shout very loudly, please.
Hi, it's Laura. What's your point of view on measuring platform in this ecosystem? So we've got content and we've got ads. Roku's a platform, an operating system with ads. Where does this fit?
And just to be clear, by platform you mean YouTube, Meta, TikTok, Amazon?
I mean the TV operating system and the ads that can run in between the apps. Come to the session at 2:10.
Okay.
Okay, that was an ad.
Okay. Right, one more question. Anybody? Okay, there's a gentleman at the back. Just say who you are and where you're from, if you could.
Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Hill from ThinkBox. Do you think that measurement companies like Kantar will ever become involved in sort of census-level data collection from the likes of, TV sets, ACR-type data? Do you see that as a future for measurement from the likes of Kantar?
That is a very, very good question, because I think we are looking into this. My experience with OEMs in that process is that they have a different strategy and a different path. And my experience comes from the other side, from the content deals I was doing with Sky. But there's no doubt they're sitting on a huge amount of relationships and data, and harnessing the power of that data on top of everything else could be incredibly helpful. So I don't have the answer around how do I see them play into the overall ecosystem, especially from an automated content recognition standpoint. But I do think they have a role to play, and they are indeed at the core of the questions we're asking ourselves around that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all.